Cyberphilosophy is a broad term for the study and investigation of human philosophical concepts within the realm of computer technology. Issues often address the complex interaction of a range of technologies and their integration into human lives, societal influence, personal identity, and how any number of these effects may be interpreted and evaluated in a philosophical sense. Put simply, cyberphilosophy is a way of looking at how technology affects us and thinking about how that effect might define us. In anticipation of a more technologically saturated future, an ethical outlook on technology may be particularly useful. Influential technologies are often an integral part of our everyday lives. The scope of these technologies may be wider than is immediately apparent. Technologies range in complexity from pads of paper to watches, cell phones, tablet computers, to mainframe databases. Any technology that we interact with subtly alters our actions. The more we interact with technology, the more integrated and influential it becomes in our lives. When interaction becomes almost constant, it may be argued that these devices are no longer influencing our lives, but rather augmenting ourselves as a whole. Ray Kurzweil predicts a technological future wherein anything and everything becomes infused with technology. At a point he terms the singularity, computers become capable of self-improvement, and this leads to an eventual merging of brain and machine to form a new kind of human consciousness. He describes in detail how existing technologies will be expanded to facilitate the direct interface of nerves of the human brain and electronic neural net computational technology. Predictions of the future may make us more keenly aware of the ethical consequences of technological proliferation, but it is also important that those predictions remain free of bias. A progress narrative is a state of mind wherein progress itself is heralded as beneficial, regardless of what its actual ramifications may be. Many authors criticize Kurzweil's predictions, citing varying reasons for their disagreement, some of which involve the concept of the progress narrative. Some authors, like Theodore Modis, claim that Kurzweil's timeline of events is too optimistic, and that while his predictions will likely come to fruition, it will be many decades before the advances he predicts become commonplace, if at all. Jonathan Huebner, a physicist at the Naval Air Warfare Center in California, claims that Kurzweil's predictions are offset by population growth, and that most technological innovations are merely combinations of existing phenomena. Huebner concludes that this trend will culminate in a technological dark age when newly created innovations are used exclusively for war. Thomas Ray objects to the idea that human neural function may be so easily attached to digital computers. Ray argues that brains are not digital machines, and that not only is incompatibility a certainty, but that the very notion of computing power does not apply to organic systems. William Dembski, a philosophy research professor at Southwest Baptist Theological Seminary, objects to Kurzweil's predictions by claiming that evolutionary models cannot be applied to non-organic neural simulations, as computers are material goods that are designed instead of grown. Dembski also points out a problem of consciousness, arguing that the location of the seat of consciousness is unknown, and that it is misleading to suggest that computational research would shed light on what it means to be conscious. James Moore, a professor of philosophy at Dartmouth College, tackles a number of issues of cyberethics, including moral agency of technological augmentation and integration, as well as artificial intelligence. He also questions the ethical boundaries of theoretical augmentation, trying to determine the difference between between restoration of lost function and prosthetics, and further augmentation beyond natural human ability. David Horner is particularly concerned with the threat to personal identity ubiquitous computing may bring. If one's thoughts are partially created artificially, it becomes unclear whether or not a person is responsible for their own thoughts and actions. Moral agency would be difficult to assess, as people would become less and less uniquely individual.
Barbara Warnick, a professor at the University of Washington, uses Kurzweil's predictions as a starting point in her investigation into internet-based technological rhetoric and literacy, embracing the idea of machine-augmented intelligence while cautioning against loaded terminology as well as the possibility of a technology-driven divide between future haves and have-nots.
Philosophical debate over issues of self in the face of technological innovation does not have to wait for ubiquitous technological proliferation to take place before meaningful discourse may take place. Examples of technological influence on modern societal functioning are widely prevalent in the present and worthy of examination and discussion. One may well wish to consider the philosophical ramifications of human-computer integration and augmentation before technologies reach Kurzweil's predicted level of ubiquity. In this way, society as a whole will be spared the task of venturing into cyberethics and cyberphilosophy before the role of integrated augmentation devices becomes so intricately woven into the personal, physical, and neurological fabric of those who desire to analyze it.